All right, good afternoon. We're going to open the agenda for the Architectural Board Review meeting for November 15th of 2021. And start with our roll call, please.
All right, thank you. This is Mary. I'll go ahead and take the roll call, and I'll start with Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six is absent. Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Here.
Board Member Olson.
Here.
And Board Member Whalen is absent. And we have a quorum today. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yep,
I'm here late.
Vice Chair Six has arrived. Thank you. So moving on to general business and public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction. And you can follow the instructions on screen to let the staff know that you would like to make a comment. Do we have anybody out there that's interested?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not see anyone wishing to speak and or raising their hand. Ms. Termoskaya, did we receive any written public correspondence?
Thank you, Mr. Russell and board members. We did receive one letter from Letty Quezada, which was distributed to the board before this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we will close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes for, we can have the next slide. For November 1st.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Board Member Black. Any discussion?
Chair Moore,
Yes, go ahead.
on item number, I think it's 1. Continue to the Plan Commission with comments. I think it would be more clear on comment number 2 to insert after, in order to screen the existing planted areas where there is insufficient proposed.
Okay. Is that okay with the seconder?
Yes.
I have been out there recently to look at that, and I think that's very appropriate. It was, what we had written was not understandable to what ought to happen. So this is a good addition.
Okay. So we can make that change. Anything else? No? Okay, let's take our vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Chair Moore.
I'll abstain.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon.
Yes.
And Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then was that the only minutes we're looking at today? I guess we didn't have a meeting this morning, did we?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair. We did not have a consent meeting last week, so no consent items to review today.
Okay. All right, then we can move on to any announcements, requests by applicants for continuance, withdrawals, agenda items, and appeals. Does anybody have anything? Does staff have anything at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no announcements at this time, unless any other board member has an announcement.
Okay. Any subcommittee reports? No activity? No? Okay, great. Then we can wrap up general business. And if we're ready, I believe we can move on to our first item. Okay. And this
Mr. Chair.
is, yes,
Just a brief staff comment for all items on today's agenda too. These case planners for each one should be in attendance as well. So if you have any specific questions, please address them as well.
excellent. Thank you. All right, so this is item number 1, which is 801 Cliff Drive, which is here for review after final approval. This project was approved in 2016 to address violations in an enforcement case for extensive unpermitted tree removals, landscaping alterations, architectural changes, and other site improvements. The current request is for ABR review after final of proposed changes to the landscape plan so that the plan matches existing conditions on site. On September 1st, the property owner planted 27 Monterey cypress trees along the perimeter of the property. This placement differs from the original approval for 20 of the trees to be planted along the perimeter and 7 in interior areas of the site. This landscape plan is separate from and does not involve changes to the habitat restoration plan or the habitat area on the site. And review after final approval requested for the changes to the landscape plan approved on November 21st of 2016. Project requires compliance with the Planning Commission resolution and ABR landscape design guidelines. It was last year, July 26th. Right, and we had a motion from last time. If we could have that up to refresh our memories.
Chair Moore, I apologize. It looks like we don't have the minutes ready to go, so I can pull those up. It'll just take a moment.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Baumann.
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore.
Yeah.
And good
Go
afternoon,
ahead.
board members. I was just going to jump in while Ted is getting the meeting minutes to suggest you just follow up on the minutes because the applicants provided responses to those. But since the owner had planted the trees already, the applicant provided photographs of each tree. So I might recommend that the board review the photos of the trees to see if they look like appropriate locations where they were planted. And I might call your attention to at least one of the trees in the photo. It looks like the placement might be problematic on tree number 7, but otherwise that's what I have for now. I'm here for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, here we go. All right, so we had a couple of straw votes. And then the motion, let's see, continue indefinitely with the comment that 27 cypress trees shall be installed as previously proposed and approved, and the applicant shall return with the revised landscape plan. And the straw votes that passed, or the straw vote that passed, was how many board members can support the planting of the date palm species within the property, but not on the perimeter of the property. And that passed unanimously. So, okay, hopefully that helps us moving forward here. And if we have our applicant, we can have their presentation now. Right. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
you'll
okay.
note the timer there. If you could limit your presentation to 15 minutes, that would help us stay on track.
Okie doke.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so as Tony kind of mentioned, you prior heard this item on July 26th. And at that time, we were requesting to replace the approved Monterey cypress trees with date palm trees in locations that were in substantial conformance with their approved locations. And the board was not supportive of that proposal. There were a few votes that were taken The one that kind of ultimately passed was to install the Monterey cypress trees on the perimeter and install the date palm trees on the interior of the property. So we kind of digested that and decided that we would install the Monterey cypress trees. But instead of installing the interior ones as date palm trees, we relocated all 27 Monterey cypress trees to the perimeter of the property, which seemed to be what most board members were concerned about, kind of how the property looked along its frontages. So we have kind of taken those existing locations for the perimeter trees and then relocated the interior trees along the perimeter. And we installed those in September. And a lot of those were field located where there was available space in the planters to ensure that, you know, they'd be able to grow to the maturity. And Sam can kind of discuss that a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you, Lonnie. So we are showing in this plan on L1, the dark circles with the dark dot in them, if you want to blow up, starting from the left to the right, that is where they are located now. The dashed circle and the dashed circle line is where they were originally proposed. So you'll see we're following, in essence, the feel and the locations that were previously approved. And we're supplementing and adding more where possible. So you see there were 4 approved, and we've got 4 in locations that will act as a nice grove, a nice buffer, a nice layer to the public along Cliff Drive and the neighbors across from Cliff Drive looking at the buildings. As you progress further to the east, you'll see along the property line that we're, again, taking those original locations as our guide and using those as our main locations. And you'll see as we get further along on the corner, we're gonna be adding some, go up to the far northeast corner, and you'll see there were 3 proposed, and there are 3 located there now in that little walkway that connects down to the corner intersection to City College. And you'll notice that if you go out from there, we are maintaining and retaining the palm feel, the beach city feel on the interior. So we did have previously located dashed circles on the south side of those buildings. We've opted to take the theme and really use the Monterey cypress as a good screen of the exterior of the project, but not plant them in the center. And we have a lot of palms, different mixes of palms, everything from shamrocks to date palms to canariensis that are on the interior. If we could go to L2, you'll see the further down Loma Alta, the balance of the cypress trees are located in the planter space between the property line and our buildings and parking lot. There we've located more than what were actually in the approved and original scheme where we had room. We actually located additional Monterey cypress to create a good feeling natural grove, if you will, screen material. And we've located more in the middle towards building E. We've located more down to the southeast corner. We have 3 down in there versus the 2 that were approved. So in all cases, we've located as many as we felt would do well to a total of 27 Monterey cypress. And then we've kept the palms and the rest of the theme on the interior, and we've removed some of the approved ones from the interior and used those on the exterior, which is what we were hearing from the commission and from the public about layering the buildings and trying to soften the architecture from the exterior of the property looking in. So that kind of summarizes a little bit of what we have today to show you, is that we've listened and kind of performed, you know, appropriately a bigger, larger massing cypress tree versus the date palms that we originally proposed last time.
Yeah, and our biologist, Larry Hunt, he also kind of recommended locating the Monterey cypress trees in more of a denser grove to have a better beneficial habitat value as a potential overwintering site for the monarch butterfly or the habitat restoration that's happening to the south of the property. So that was another kind of reason for how these came to be planted. And if we want to scroll through the photos of all the trees, we can do that.
Can we zoom out, sorry, so we can see the number? There we go, thank you.
Okey-doke. So we'll kind of conclude our presentation by saying in general, all of the trees are doing, or most of the trees are doing pretty well. There's a few locations such as tree 4, where it's surrounded by buildings and hardscape and it's getting a lot of reflected heat and light that they're doing. Tree struggling a little bit more. And then the one that Tony had mentioned, I believe is tree 7, that's surrounded by the carports and the parking area. That one's also struggling because of all the reflected light and heat. But the ones that are more protected in planter areas, those are doing well right now. So we're monitoring the ones that are struggling a little bit right now and may have to replant some of them if they end up dying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does.
All right, thank you very much. And we will open public comment for this item. If there's anybody in the public that would like to address the board regarding this specific item, you can follow the instructions on screen and raise your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not see anyone that has raised their hand wishing to speak on this item. Ms. Turnovsky, did we receive any written correspondence for item 1 today?
Thank you, Mr. Russell and board members. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thanks.
All right, well, then we will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Would like to start? If there are any questions.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Who are we speaking to? Oh, sorry. Here I am.
There you go, Mr. Black. Go ahead.
Couple of questions. Mr. Mathis, what size are those cypresses at planting? I don't see it written down anywhere. Is it on your plan?
Good
They were-
question. Lonnie, were
they
they
were-
24s or 15s?
There are 15 gallons. That's what was approved.
Sorry, David, I wasn't sure. That's why I asked Lonnie. So they're 15-gallon size.
And was 15 gallon what was approved back in 2016? Is that correct?
Correct. That was.
Okay. And then were there any additional date palms that I know you wanted the last time you were here? Were there additional plantings of date palms in the interior since we last saw this? Or no?
No, so we are no longer proposing any additional date palms beyond what's already been installed, which I believe is just around the pool area. There are 4
Okay.
of them.
And then there's just one other question. So all the plantings that were approved in 2016, are they reflected in this plan that I see before me now? And were they installed per plan?
So this
Um,
reflects, sorry, I was gonna say, yeah, so this is kind of an update to that. So there's some, plant material that was installed per plan back then, and then this kind of includes what has been as-built installed since then on the approved
I
plan.
think you can see in the legend, David, there's, the top part is the gray, which is what was existing planting, and then the green colored plants were supplemental and added. So there are more plants that are planted than what was originally approved. So this is an as-built is showing kind of the conditions on site, the conditions that were improved upon or inserted along with the original approved plan. So you're looking at a supplemented as-built plan today.
Okay, so to confirm, there's more plants now than were approved in 16?
Correct.
Okay. Those are my only questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Vice Chair Six, go ahead.
Chair Moore, I'm not a Latin speaking expert, but to this layman, it seems that there is a conflict between the established palm trees, and some of them right cheek and jowl with these new youngsters. It would seem to me that there'd be a conflict for space and light and energy. And wonder if one of the Latin speaking experts would speak to that.
If they're planted densely, Commissioner Six, there was a lot of existing material and the areas that we did find on site that would allow a canopy to come up and over the top of maybe some of the smaller palm trees. They did choose to plant a cypress there. So I think the idea of compatible space is a good one. If there is, conflicts in the future for, say, a taller palm next to a cypress, the idea might be that the cypress would take some of that airspace above and there might need to be one removed. But as of today, they're going to compete with each other and try to make as dense and lush a barrier and landscape border as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And just to follow up on that question, I think so for us folks that are not as familiar with the final height and size of these plantings, for instance, the area kind of in the middle of the screen where there's fan palms in your cypress grove there, the fan palm will top out at what height versus the cypress will go to approximately what height?
Yeah, so the fan palms would be in the 12 to 20 foot height, depending on the multiple trunking aspects. And the cypress trees will be 70 to 80 feet if they like their spot. So you know, along the coast, they grow quite large. They can get 80 to 100. This is slightly off the coast, so I do imagine they'll be a little smaller than a direct ocean condition, but they'll still be well above the fan palms. They'll create a upper kind of shade canopy layer above the fan palms.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, are we ready to go to comments then? Okay, let's do that. Okay, Mr. Black. We could have the applicants turn off their cameras and microphones. Okay, Board Member Black, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the important component to this whole landscape design was the installation of those cypresses. So assuming that they'll be properly cared for, in the future, I think that was my main concern, because I thought that having the cypress trees there helps mitigate sort of the overall visual impact of the buildings on that site. And I think given the location that have been proposed and planted now, I think that will do the job. So, it's what is shown here is acceptable to me. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Six.
I'm sorry, but I have one delayed question, probably to staff. Who is going to monitor the health of these as they are coming out of the ground in between these already established palms, and we're looking at some that are losing their health? It seems to me a very important aspect of this, given the history of this project, that these trees are carefully monitored and nurtured, especially in these first years or so.
Chair Moore, Board Member Six, I can answer that question. I think we had a note on the agenda about the consistency with the Planning Commission resolution. And the reason we had that on there was because the Planning Commission added a condition of approval to include monitoring of the Monterey cypress, along with the monitoring of the habitat restoration at the rear of the site. So that's why we were concerned when we talked to you about this project, when you saw it last time, we were concerned about whether it be consistent with the Planning Commission's approval. So these trees do call for monitoring, so they are included in the quarterly habitat restoration monitoring.
Okay.
And, that plan allows for some adaptive management or adjustments to the plan. That's one of the reasons for continuous monitoring, because if something's not working out, things can get adjusted. So that could come into play too. That plan, the monitoring was supposed to last for 5 years after approval, but I think we may end up extending the monitoring out into the future, because these trees have just recently been installed rather than being installed back in 2016 when they were approved.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Berman. It makes me feel a lot more comfortable. Just my only comment, it just seems aesthetically and physically awkward to combine these palm trees with the cypress, but I'll defer that. We've heard from our expert, and he doesn't see that way, so I will defer to his opinion. Mr. Black.
I have a question for Mr. Bowman.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Bowman, do you think that at this point the ABR should condition our approval with extension of the monitoring? Would that be helpful?
I think it would be. I'm not completely familiar with the ABR adding conditions of approval that would run far into the future like that, but it would probably assist staff in ensuring that kind of monitoring time extension happens.
What would you propose? 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or what's a reasonable proposal?
Boy, I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the spot here. I can't recall examples of a design review approval that had this kind of monitoring that extends out in the future like that.
Mr. Bowman, in the past, we've asked about that sort of thing. Is there some sort of, we've asked if we could add sort of sunset language to approvals and things like that. And we've been told no. So we could certainly recommend add that as a recommendation that the planning staff
Pursue.
pursue that or look into means of adding that language, but I don't think we can actually make that a part of our approval.
That sounds like a good approach, Chair Moore. I know we do have some nexus with the Planning Commission approval to extend the monitoring period. That might be the better approach, but it would be good to know that the ABR recommends that also.
Chair Moore, board members.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to hop on and note that I agree, Chair Moore, with what you said. It's more appropriate for the ABR to make a recommendation, and any conditions of approval made by a design review board should generally be related to project design rather than, environmental conditions or monitoring. So you're on the right track with that.
Okay, great. My only comments are that I think the intent of our last motion was met by the installation of and location of these cypress trees. I can understand that changes, modifications to landscape plans need to be made on site occasionally, so that's understandable. Anybody else want to chime in at this time? Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
I can make a motion
Great.
to approve the project as presented with following condition that the staff continue to investigate the extension of the monitoring period.
Okay, I'll second that. And would you, Mr. Olson, accept substitution for condition to read request?
Yes, I would.
So, okay. Okay, anything else? Any other discussion? No? Okay, let's take a vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black,
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
and Board Member Olson.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, can we have the other slide back up?
Thank you.
We have
Chair Moore,
sorry, before we go, there was there we go, the appeal process slide. So this is to notify the public that there is a 10-day appeal period, and you can follow these instructions on screen. Okay, Mr. Olson, go ahead.
just as a matter of policy, I'd like to remind us to, and ask that when we make the motions, that they be read to us before we vote on the motion.
Okay. That is a good idea. Thank you. All right, so that wraps up item 1. And we can move on to item number 2 now, please. And at this time, I need to recuse myself from this item, as there could be a perceived conflict of interest due to a project that we are working on adjacent to this location. So I will hand this over to Vice Chair Six. Thank you.
I also have some brief staff comments
So,
as well. Mr.
Next item is 35 Anacapa Street, new item, pre-application review. The project consists of a new 3-story development on a half-acre vacant lot located in the southwest corner of Anacapa Street and North Mason Street. The proposal includes an airspace condominium map for development of one building consisting of 2 small 6-room hotels corner market, bodega, various types of restaurants, sit-down coffee shop, and fast casual kitchens, a tasting room, artist studios, an art gallery, and others retail space. The project will require a parking modification, coastal development permit, development plan, 2 conditional use permits, and a tentative subdivision map. This is a one-time pre-application consultation. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. So our applicant's here.
Vice Chair Six. I
Yes,
just want to make some brief staff comments on this as well. So for the next 3 items, no final appealable decision will be made. So we don't need to make a formal motion. It's just concept review. So I want to make that clear. Thank you.
so to clarify, each of us will make our own statements and they will be separated, separate and not condensed into a unified motion, correct?
Correct. We can, I still think we should make a summary. So once everyone's made their comments, maybe one secretary can summarize those comments and make sure we're all in agreement before we move on to the next item.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Six, I just had a quick intro to this project before you have the applicant come on. I'm Kathy Kennedy, case planner for the project. This project came before us for planning staff only review for planner consultation back in June. And the main question at that point was to determine whether this project that includes 2 small hotels could be allowed on this one lot rather than one. In this zoning district, OC, Ocean Commercial, small hotels are defined as having 6 rooms maximum, and they're allowed with the conditional use permit. And staff decided to bring that to the Planning Commission. So back in October 14th, the commissioners reviewed the project as a concept review project. And we discussed whether these 2 hotels would be allowed to be on this one lot. And they were supportive of it. And the mechanism to do so would be a condominium map. So wanted to also let you know that the commissioners had numerous comments. There are some minutes from the Planning Commission, but one of their main comments on the design would be to have the 2 hotels have a distinct design, each one be distinct from each other. So the applicant has made some revisions to the project. So they're a little different than what was reviewed by the Planning Commission, but it was addressing some of the commission comments. Thank you very much.
Our applicant I see is here, Mr. Kirkhart. You can go ahead.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mark Kirkhart, Principal Design Architects. We're very
Melissa
excited
Turner.
about. Oh, pardon me. Sorry about Melissa.
Melissa Turner from Design Arc, and we also have Troy White available for questions if needed. Go ahead, Mark.
So we're very excited to bring this project before the board and get some preliminary comments. You're all very familiar, I'm pretty sure, with the site, the vacant lot at the corner of Mason and Anacapa. If you go to the next page, you got some site photos. Of course, we have the Hotel Californian to the west. We also have some lower corrugated metal buildings directly adjacent to us to the west. And just to the north of us, the large Beacons, formerly Beacons building, the Sonos building, which by the way is 48 feet tall to the parapet. And then their elevator override is significantly higher than that. And if we just go to the page 5, please. So we really see this site as an opportunity for placemaking in the funk zone, to have the opportunity to give the funk zone a real kind of an epicenter. And in that regard, we have basically given away the corner to a very large ascending staircase that we really feel can become kind of a meeting place. It has the opportunity for people to sit on it, to wait, to be, to wait for someone, or just to relax in the funk zone, really kind of give it a center, a heart, if you will. The ground floor plan, you can see here, we have a parking garage that is along the south and the west of the site. These are going to be three-level puzzle type lifts that will be 100% operated by valet 24 hours a day. And then right on the corner behind, just west of the stairway, is a bodega marketplace. And we have a restaurant on Anacapa with outdoor seating on the sidewalk. And that is proposed to be a two-story restaurant with a grand staircase going up to the upper floor. So that restaurant has a second floor capability as well. So the second place making that we're doing is really what we is the heart of our project, which is the second floor. If you go to the next slide, please. So once you ascend that stair, you're drawn into this center courtyard that has a big open hole to the sky in the middle of it. And on this level, we have the second floor of the restaurant. We have some tasting rooms. We have some fast casual kitchens, an art gallery, some artist workspace, additional commercial space, a small stage. And there's also then some of the back of house and the manager's unit for the hotel, as well as restroom facilities. So this we see as being a very active courtyard, and will support the tasting and the food facilities surrounding it. Go on the next floor is the hotel, the 2 6-unit hotels. The next slide, please. Number 7. So the hotel units also in this zone, they're limited to 300 square feet, which is a very small, compact hotel room. So we've located those along the western edge of the site, but they do have private courtyards, entry courtyards in front of them. And those first 6 hotel rooms there that are just outlined, you can see we've actually even revised and have had 2 different floor plans. So this is the first of the 6 hotel rooms. And then further to the north, if you slide over a little bit, you'll see that there's another 6 hotel rooms that are a slightly different floor plan, each one with private courtyards in front. So this upper floor, other than the small bar on the easterly edge, the portion that's kind of shaded in gold there, that's a public space, and the outdoor patio seating to the north of it is public. But the rest of the floor will be basically set aside for the hotel guests, including a hotel amenity on the corner, on kind of the southeast corner there with ocean views. So the goal of our client here is to really make this, go to the next plan, please, which is a roof plan, is to really push the envelope on the sustainability. So we're planning on actually investigating closed loop geothermal for heating and cooling. We're going to be putting an excess number of photovoltaics, both on the outdoor trellises and on the roofs. So we're really planning on using recycled materials wherever we can. We're going to be entering into looking at a wellness kind of opportunity as well. So we really think that this has an opportunity to become a real showcase, not only for the Funk Zone, but just for development in general. We're proposing some green roofs, as you can see in a couple of locations here. So this is just a concept review. You can go to the next slide, please, to show you some elevations. The massing, we've really broken up the massing into kind of only 3 small areas where we have gable roofs that go up to near the 45-foot height limitation. You can see from these elevations even that how the corner, all the massing is pulled back from the corner for that grand stairway. It's a total of 3 stories maximum. The lower elevation there along Mason shows the bodega on the ground floor and a small entrance into the hotel, which will have a private elevator that'll take you up to the 3rd floor. We're really even proposing to use some of the pre-engineered steel buildings like you see down there now with pre-weathered corrugated metal, combination of that and some wood siding, maybe some Corten steel, concrete block, really a very eclectic kind of collection of materials that are very representative of what you see in the Funk Zone. Go to page 10, next slide, please. So this is the view along Helena, where you can see what's shaded in the foreground are the single level corrugated metal buildings, and you can see how our building kind of steps back behind that. The hotel rooms are held back from the from the wall on the third level on the left-hand side there, which is those first 6 units. The next view, please, which is a section, sheet 11. I can't really see my timer right now. I'm not sure how much time I have left. I'm trying to move this along. Okay, thank you. So you can see how the ground floor, we've got the triple stack parking. We're trying to really limit the amount of excavation into what we know is a very shallow water table there. This is much more economical than trying to do a completely additional subterranean level of parking. But that does give us a nice ceiling height for the ground floor units, the commercial units, about 14 feet. Next slide, please. In context, you can see our project here, right along Anacapa and Mason. Directly to the west of us are the corrugated metal buildings and then the buildings of the Californian Hotel. So you can see where maybe point out where we are right on the corner there. And I think that if you go to page 13, please, the three-dimensional views, once again, I think really tell the story. As far as the 2 different 6-unit hotels, you can see that the ones to the south there, we have clad with our corrugated metal, and they have kind of a gable roof form with a ridge skylight. And then the hotel rooms, the other 6 hotel rooms to the north there, we have one room that we're kind of doing a custom room to sort of provide a reveal between the 2 different building unit types. And then you can see in the foreground, we've got the upper floor of the restaurant with a green roof over the outdoor dining deck, photovoltaics over all of the shade structures. And I think this really shows how the building really steps back and really gives the public the option of the corner. Next view, please. So here you can see once again the large staircase. We're proposing to do a bike corral along Mason Street. We're even going to be going to Lyft and Uber and see if we can't make this corner the drop-off place for the punk zone for both drop-off and pickup. You can see how the massing kind of steps back away from the street. Sidewalk dining along the street there, plus the side dining above on the second floor overlooking. Next view, please. These are a couple of context views. Upper left-hand corner is looking down Mason, where you can see the massing of the Beacons building to the right there. And we feel very comfortable that this kind of stepped massing really is appropriate for this site. Along Mason Street, you can see the bodega and the lobby on the ground floor for the restaurant, and then, for the hotel, and then we have some hotel rooms there behind that exit stair. Looking at it from the parking lot to the south, we're stepping it back enough that we can get ficus growing on the parking garage, and you can see how the massing gives way to the large courtyard for getting light and views from the courtyard. Go to page 17 next. We can skip past 16 since we're running low on time. So these are some views after you ascend the stairs. On the left-hand corner, you can see that the next view on the upper right is a view back into that courtyard with a large opening in the roof. For that further shows up in the view at the lower right-hand corner there. Shows how much light is getting down into that courtyard. And then the last slide is the views of the 3rd level. So you can see that big oculus that lets light down into the 2nd floor becomes a walkway, gives way to access to the hotel rooms, and as well as the amenity. So the bottom 2 views, one is showing the hotel lobby looking out, and then the lower left-hand corner is from the hotel amenity deck on the corner. I think that pretty much tells the story. Melissa, do you think of anything that I might want to add in the last couple minutes?
I didn't know if you wanted to highlight a little bit some of the art component of the project. I know you mentioned the programming on the 2nd floor, but the opportunity for possibly some murals and public art display potentially integrated into the staircase or within even the courtyard itself.
Yeah, art is a big component of this project in the eyes of our client. That's why we've included an art gallery. There's different ideas about how that might be operated. It might be lend out to other gallery operators. We have the ability for some artists to work there, not in residence, but to come and work and be available for people to visit into their studio. And as Melissa said, we're really, as we further develop this, we're looking to incorporate public art in form of murals, three-dimensional sculptures. There's a lot more development to be done on that stairway. We've just now begun to get a landscape architect and civil engineer involved so we can begin to develop the stormwater management strategies and further development of the site design. So like I said, we're just here for comments. We're going to be putting together our final art submittal to get back to Planning Commission. So I'm available if you have any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Good, nice presentation. So I'll open it up to public comment on this item. We have our public comment screen. Thank you. So William, can you take it away?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. If you wish to make a public comment, please indicate by clicking the raise/lower your hand icon on the control panel. That will notify us that you wish to speak. And it does not look like anyone from the general attendees list is raising their hand to speak on this item. Ms. Ternoskaya, did we receive any written public correspondence for this item today?
Thank you, Mr. Russell and board members. We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That being so, we'll bring it back to the board for questions. If we could have the applicants turn your screens off. Thank you. So do I have questions on this?
I have a question.
Ms. Anderson.
Can we go back to the ground floor plan, please? On the northwest corner, there's a circle. It's like a shaded circle on the ground floor.
That would be sheet 5.
Yeah, that shaded circle to that northwest. Is that, can you tell me what that is?
That's kind of a placeholder. One of the things we're considering is wanting to really show off how the stormwater management is being handled for this site. And so that's right now just kind of the idea is an above ground cistern that would maybe perhaps collect the water off of the second floor, the open courtyard, and hold it there until it weeps back down into groundwater. So the whole idea we're just beginning to even further develop is how we show how the stormwater management is handled. It becomes kind of almost an educational opportunity.
Okay, and then can we go to the north elevation, please?
That's the number in page 9. There you go.
Okay, so the property line steps back behind the existing building, and the building is right up against the property line, correct?
The face of this the darker shaded vertical, we're thinking that's going to be recycled cedar siding of some sort. That is the only portion that is out at the sidewalk property line level. So even the portion that is showing the glazing and infilling the gable end of the metal building, that is back about 15 feet from the sidewalk to give us our view angles from the driveway leaving the garage. And likewise, that the stairwell behind what you can see there, you can see that now looks like an above ground storage tank. That is back, in 15 feet or so from the property line. And then on the other side, what you see kind of drawn in there lighter is the restaurant portion, and that is back another, that's like back 50 or 60 feet from the property line on Mason.
Yeah, I think yes, thank you. On this sheet to the right, behind that existing building where there's some shops right now next to your above ground cistern, there's two property lines and your property steps. So
Yeah.
that portion behind the existing building, and that's right against the property line, correct?
Yes,
On the north side too, okay.
that would be on the west side.
What,
That would be the westerly property line. Yeah, it goes right to the property line. But that piece where it steps back out again is back another 15 feet or so from the face of the stairwell in the foreground.
okay, that was my question. Those are my questions for now.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Others have questions, please.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Olson.
So would you, Mr. Kirkard, describe the intentions on the glass and describe how you might, what kind of choices you might make? Especially on this elevation we're just looking at right now.
Sure. I think if we leave both of these up, it kind of gives us a little bit more of an idea. So we kind of see having maybe three different ways of approaching the glazing. As you can see on the Anacapa Street side, where we're in the corrugated metal building, we're thinking about, incorporating a almost like a recycled industrial steel sash type window along the elevation along Anacapa there. And then when we get into the block below on the north side, where we're in this vertical wood siding, that we would do maybe a little bit more conventional modern storefront in that piece that's closest out to the street. And then we're hoping that to be able to afford to do a very transparent glass on glass mullion, stainless steel clips if we need to, Sir Norman Foster inspired glazing that becomes very transparent. So you can really see right into the interior of those spaces. So that's our goal at this point, to sort of have three different approaches to glazing, to kind of work with the massing of the various material types.
That's my question. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Olson. Others? You, Mr. Black?
No questions for me.
I just a couple quick questions, just on the material. I think you've explained that darker shade is vertical reclaimed wood, you said, and then I can tell the corrugated metal. You also mentioned Cor-Ten. Where did you see? Is that the maybe the brown?
Yeah, the brown that would be, if you look on the north elevation, these kind of shallow pitched roofs. Those are that's 6 of the hotel rooms. And we've shown, like on the if you even enlarge, that brown color. And then we've shown like the railing on the second floor that might be a laser cut, water jet cut steel, maybe even on the gate, the transparent gates going into the parking garage. So yeah, that's kind of would be the three main materials.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noon. Mr. Black, I have just 2 questions. It seems like you're not affected by any flood zone raised plinth or anything, correct?
Well, we're definitely in the flood zone. We're very familiar with it, having done the Californian. But what we can do, maybe if you enlarge the, let's go to a 3D view, if you wouldn't mind. Can kind of explain that on page 13, at PDF 13. And zoom in on the ground floor here, if you could. So we would be flood proofing at the sidewalk line, as opposed to trying to flood proof back at the windows. So we've got this board form concrete wall that sets back with some planting in front of it, and we would have floodgates that would go across that opening, for example. And the same thing on the Mason Street, we would end up with floodgates. We know that the floodplain, it's up at about 30 inches plus our freeboard. when we get to the final grading plan, we may try to raise the finished floor a little bit of those floor levels, but the intent would be to floodgate protect them as opposed to getting the whole building above the floodplain.
Okay, thank you. Just another more curious than critical on your interior perspectives, pretty much the last sheet.
I think that's
You have-
17.
Page 17 and 18. Yeah.
You have I think it's the next one even after that, or is it the one before? Well,
this is on
anyway, some of these have, yeah, your blue horizon line. Are you going to be able to see the ocean horizon, or are there?
Yes. Yes. From the third floor, we will. That's why we kind of showed it there. From the second floor, we won't, because the project directly to the south of this, they're proposing that multi-level parking structure. If you probably, I'm sure you guys reviewed that. Plus, there's the restaurant buildings that are right on Cabrillo there that are pretty tall by the time you get to the top of the roofs. So from the second floor, I mean, we'll have beautiful views of the Riviera and looking up back towards the mountains from the second floor, but from the third floor and the third floor, of course. But we will get some glimpses off in the distance of the ocean to the south there.
And then as long as we're here, one last question. We see the vertical, like your corrugated forms, your roofs would be corrugated and your vertical siding would be corrugated.
Correct.
And then what are you doing? Have you developed, or what do you envision as the eave condition?
It'll be a gutter. We haven't gotten to that yet, but we expect that would be a galvanized, a rectangular gutter and downspouts to get to the planters for whatever we need to for cleaning the water. So we just haven't developed it quite that far yet.
Very good, thank you. So with that, we'll bring it to comments. If anybody want to go first?
Vice Chair Six, this is Will with staff. I just recommend maybe that you keep notes as well for each one of the board members' comments, just so we can summarize it for the applicant at the very end.
You want me to make notes?
Yes.
I don't
If that's okay.
that's beyond my pay rate. All right.
If not, we'll just try our best to summarize it at the end, just to give the applicant team
I have a comment for Will.
Yes.
This is not for the applicant. The mention of murals brings up the old subject that I have been dealing with in the past, and have asked Christina and staff to prepare some sort of policy for murals in the funk zone. And as this project progresses, as a couple of other ones, I'm hoping that subject is still on your to-do list.
Thank you for reminding me. I will see where Christina had last left off with our supervisor on that. And I can get back to you on that. Thank you, Board Member Olson.
Mr. Olson, would you like to care to continue with your comments?
That's all the comment I have.
Okay, very good.
I had a comment.
Who was that, David? Mr. Black?
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, thank you. I would say I'm supportive of what's presented. I do like considering the location. I like the funkiness of everything that's going on. Materiality, I guess. Without saying what to do, I guess moving forward, I would like to maybe hear the justification for the vertical siding. I'm sorry, the vertical wood, the reclaimed wood siding. Not necessarily this time, but in future presentations. Is that something that's seen in that area of the funk zone often? As far as compatibility, but that would be the only really comment I would have about it, other than, you know, I am supportive of the direction that you're headed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Noon.
Mr. Six, I will come back for comments here. I don't think it's fair to the applicant to be silent on some of these things. And in general, I'm positive about this. I do think that the stairway is an interesting aspect of this. I think it has great chance for accomplishing what I think the architects anticipate here. So I think that's quite unique and a quite good element of this. The rest of the building, it seems to me it fits with Funk Zone. If anything, as it progresses, I would think some simplification might be in order because it seems a bit busy. But in general, I think positive about it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Olson.
Conference is not available.
All right, who's next? Ms. Anderson?
Sure, I will go. Yeah, I too support what has been shown, and I appreciate the architectural massing, especially from the aerial views. I think that was a really good addition to the presentation. I appreciate how the building steps back from the street. I think there could be some further study on the west elevation, stepping back from those existing buildings or just study the second. What?
That's the west elevation?
I think that's west, yeah?
Yeah,
Yes,
the
it's
one in
west.
back from this view.
Yeah, back from this view, correct. Just study on the second and third floor, stepping back from the property line. I think the integration of landscape on the stairs is a good idea. I think that can be studied obviously as it goes forward and pushed with the stormwater management in the design. And along with Mr. Olson's comment, we could recommend that the applicant work with staff on mural locations. And I think as far as materiality, I like the idea of the different uses of the glazing with the different architectural elements. And I think if you're going to go that direction, keep it very specific, like you were describing. So as far as materiality and how you're implementing that. And I think the use of open space is appropriate.
Thank you. Can you explain your materiality, articulate that a little better?
Sure. So, like in this view, you can see the three gable forms. To me, those are one type of architectural style. So I think those three forms could be consistent, whereas, for example, Hotel 1 is a different material and style, so the detailing should be different.
Ah, I get it.
Yeah.
Another, we didn't, like, if I could point out to one last thing is that the hotel number 1, the one that's on the south, we're looking at putting operable garage doors on those in front of those units so they can open out to their courtyard.
That's cool.
All right. So Mr. Black?
Nothing really new to add. I'm pretty excited about this project. I think it's could be a real focal point for the Funk Zone. I like the variety of materials, all of which seems totally appropriate to me. It's sort of more of a contemporary industrial look, but I just love all the different materials that are being proposed. I think the program of the variety of uses for this project, I think is pretty exciting as well. And again, I just think it's going to be a real gathering space for for those that come to the funk zone. And I have to compliment the applicant just on the presentation alone. I think it's very nicely done and illustrated. Thank you.
All right. Well, that leaves me, I'm going to be a contrarian here for several different points. I'm very concerned to have, you know, the main heart of the activity up on the second floor, to have, you know, to simply have architecture as the draw to get up to the second floor. I'm concerned about the viability of the activity up there. I think that once one has experienced this very architectural wonder, you know, I'm worried that it will be, unless there's exceptional food or whatever, up on that second floor. I'm very concerned about, you know, the economic vitality of getting up on second floor. Retail and commercial on second floor is a very risky thing. So, and I don't know whether this stairway, once experienced the first time, is enough draw to keep people getting up there. And yeah, I'm just hoping the space does not become dead after, you know, the first oh wows. You know, the design is exceptional. It's a very architectural. I'm thinking that if, in my view, the architect, it should be more, it's almost, it's almost too sleek and almost too contemporary in my way of thinking. I think that it should be more humble and more industrial. You know, I like the idea of the recycled glass, and the materials, but I think that if the materials were used more to distinguish separate, more humble buildings in an arrangement of different buildings, that it would be more successful and more in keeping with the industrial, more humble architecture around it. So it's a bit too contemporary and too sleek in the way the glass is handled in the elevator, the way the wide open accordion doors, the absolute, you know, glass ends to it. I think for it to be more compatible with the idea of the funk zone, it should be, it takes some of the internal volume from the second floor and third floor to create more distinct, separate languaged buildings. So I'm uncomfortable with it. And those are my comments. So, do I need to summarize these, Mr. Russell?
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. Yes, please. I guess just do your best to try to summarize them. And we are running
Well,
a little.
Do you want me to? I think I'm. Certainly we're. So okay. So most of the board, except for one member, support the design and is excited about it. That the stairway is a is a very positive feature. And the board, the majority of the board find that the materials used fit in with the vernacular and materials of the funk zone, that it that the architectural massing is very successful, that the setback from the streets, both let's see, Mason and Anacapa are successful. One comment, there was the stairway, would like to see more landscape. If that's correct, Ms. Anderson, correct? More landscape along, coordinate with the landscape along the stairway?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Several members were concerned that an art program be established. One member said that the architecture and forms are a little busy and could be simplified. One board member was concerned about the use of a vertical mounted recycled wood. Again, that most board members find that the uses and the distribution of the uses throughout the building are very exciting and compliment on the presentation. One board member is concerned about the project being too contemporary. We'd like to see it a little more eclectic and more industrial, more in harmony with the more humble architecture in the area, representing the funk zone. And one board member is concerned about, the viability of having commercial and activity on that second floor, a full level above ground floor. If there's anything that I've missed in my summary, please let me know.
Minister Six, I can see that this is something that you're going to be really good at, keeping these notes.
Vice Chair, I do have a clarification I'd like to add.
Yeah, Mr. Nid.
On the comment of the concern over the vertical reclaimed cedar, it's not a concern. I just, that could be worded to state, to encourage the applicant to confirm the compatibility with that area.
Okay, very good. Ms. Anderson, you raised your hand.
Yes. Just study the massing on the building on the west elevation.
Oh, yes. So one, in fact, two members are concerned about or would like to see more setback on the west elevation. So I think that we've done our job, and we wish you the best at the Planning Commission. Is there anything that we're lacking to serve you?
Oh, thank you very much. I think those were good.
Thank you.
Those were good comments. We'll take those under advisement, and we'll see you guys in a little while after we get a little further developed. Thanks very much for your positive comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Six. That was good. We cannot start item 3 until 4:45. Unfortunately, we are running just a little early today, but so maybe we can take a recess until 4:45.
4:45. We will reconvene. We will close the Architecture Board of Review meeting of November 15th until 4:15.
Thank you.
4:45.
4:45.
Correct.
4:40.
reopen our meeting for November 15th, 2021, and move to item number 3, which is 425 Garden Street. And this is a new item. It's a pre-application review. And the project consists of demolition of all on-site structures and construction of a 33-unit apartment complex with rooftop amenities consistent with the city's average unit size density program, the city's inclusionary housing ordinance, and the state's density bonus law. There will be 2 moderate income units, 5 low income units, and 26 market rate units. No parking is proposed on site consistent with a AUD ordinance. The project is proposed at a density of 86.84 units per acre, which is allowable with state density bonus law. This is a one-time pre-application consultation, and no final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Okay, is there anything from staff to start? Before we have the applicants jump in?
Hi, this is Stephanie Swanson. I'm the planner on this case. I just wanted to let you know I'm here for questions, but no staff presentation. This is a one-time concept review. There's not been a zoning review of these plans. This is just for getting their feet wet with the ABR. Thanks.
Okay, I think it would be helpful for Ms. Swanson, especially for the public, to hear what are the current rules for parking in a development like this, and a little bit more about the density that's allowed in this case, as well as the height limit, if that's possible.
Sure. So in regards to parking, the AUD ordinance does allow for no parking at this site. The way the ordinance is written, it says maximum of 1 parking space per unit. And so 0 parking is allowed because 0 is less than 1. In regards to density, they are using the state density bonus program, meaning that the general plan allowable density is allowed to be exceeded by the project. And this project did use a PRT, so they submitted a pre-application before this, and we did confirm that their density is allowed as proposed. And in regards to the height, I'm going to have to look that up because I did not have that immediately available, but I can come right back.
Okay, great. While we're waiting for that, we could have the applicants introduce themselves, but just pause on starting their presentation. We could have them on.
So I'm Ellen Bildston Architecture and Planning. We're the architects working with Greg on this project.
All right, welcome. And then
I'm Ken Vermillion, also with Bildston Architecture and Planning.
okay, thank you.
Greg, you're muted, I think, Greg. And we have Greg Wrights.
I was muted and I'm blue. I don't know, I'm not normally this blue, but Greg Wright, project applicant.
Okay, welcome. And we're just waiting for a little bit more zoning detail before we get started.
Moore, I'm looking through a series of documents. In the interest of time, would it be okay for the applicant to do their presentation? And when you are going back to the board for questions, I can pop on and confirm height?
Perfect, that will work for us. Okay. The applicants can get going here, and please note the 15-minute timer. If you can keep your presentation to that timeline, that'll help us keep on track. So go ahead.
Great. Well, I'll get us started. So we're glad to present what we consider an innovative, exciting project that seeks to lend solutions to the Santa Barbara challenge of affordability, aesthetics, easy walking and biking access to downtown, the Funk Zone, and the beach. This parcel is in the Central Business District, not in El Pueblo Viejo. It's an infill project along Garden Street, where industrial aesthetic has been embraced in recently constructed buildings in this working part of town. We've spoken to numerous people, and we've been told that this looks like a prototype of what is needed given the city's priorities. This project doesn't request any modifications and offers a high level of affordability, as you'll hear more from Greg as we go through our presentation. A few of the notable design features that I'd like to highlight, which you'll see more of when Ken makes his presentation. We've got significant views from the entrance to the center courtyard, bringing light and air to the inner units. We've got an at-grade courtyard and roof deck for outdoor living opportunities for the residents, in addition to private balconies with varied depths and transparency to enliven the facade. Amenity spaces for residents to interact with one another and build community among neighbors. We see this building as a really sort of mixed community and a real opportunity for people to get to know each other and build community. There's ample bicycle storage for the likelihood of e-bikes. We've got pullover areas for trash pickup, service vehicles, and rideshare cars to minimize the impact on the current flow of traffic. And we think that the massing is in harmony with numerous beloved, well-respected apartment buildings from Santa Barbara history. So with that, I'll hand it over to Greg to tell you more about the project.
Thank you. Today, it's just a concept review. I understand it's really for design feedback, and you'll see that the design presented today is early and is asking for real feedback from the board. But I felt like it was important to provide some context for the project before we get into that. As Ellen mentioned, it meets all of the requirements of the AUD program and the state density bonus. And we're not seeking any incentives that are allowed under that program. So there's a density bonus, and you're also allowed to ask for other incentives. We're not asking for anything other than the density bonus. And as part of it, we're providing over 20% capital A affordable units. So there were 5 lower income and 2 moderate income, and then the rest market rate. The rest of the market rate are also targeted to be more affordable in response to the urgent need we have for attainable housing here in Santa Barbara. And it was with this singular objective that this project evolved, and the design you see before you was arrived at. There are 3 components to the cost of live in Santa Barbara, and that can be addressed by how we build housing, and that's rent, the cost of transportation, and utility costs. And we've looked at all of those to try to reduce the cost for people to live in this location. The building is in what's considered a walkers and bikers paradise by Walk Score, a score of 96. And this project's design and features will allow people to live here and get all their needs met by walking, biking, car share, or using the bus. So that will reduce their transportation costs. By not providing on-site parking, it may sound shocking, but each parking space effectively costs $400 to $500 per month in this location because of the cost of building on-site parking. So this is a savings that we can pass along to tenants. But we do understand that some tenants will want to have parking spaces, and we will commit to providing off-street parking for anyone that needs one. The building is meant to be designed to be energy efficient and achieve a standard of LEED Gold to reduce utility costs. And then finally, the building is just not designed to be a luxury building. It's designed to be efficient to build, efficient to operate, and all the amenities and design elements are conceived to be economical, functional, useful, not superfluous. It's meant to be an attainable place to live. So most of the housing that's being built in town is primarily luxury, and we felt like we have an opportunity to do something innovative here and really use a private development model to address the urgent need for more attainable housing. The design team for what we're really here for, which is some design comments from the board.
Great, thanks, Greg. So we'll take you through the plans now. As you can see, it's a 4-story building. It fronts on Garden Street, as we said, mid-block, not at the corners of Gutierrez, not at the corners of Haley. And if we go in a couple pages, the first page is project data. You can see we're less than 10,000 per floor. You see the callouts for 33 units total. 7 of those are true capital A affordable units. And you can see the site down there highlighted directly next to the side of the current OfficeMax building. So if we go through to the photos of the site, next sheet. Starting at the upper left, that's the corner of Haley Street on the east side of the street. That's the corner building with the blue and brown stucco. And as you go from left to right, we end up at the corner of Garden and Gutierrez, where you see the car in the foreground and Barry Winnick's Core 10 corrugated steel building just behind the little back pavilion building. In between, we understand there are low single-story residences. Some have been upgraded to 2-story. And then if we look down on our side of the street, on the left, on the third photo down, is the small bakery that's currently on the corner of Gutierrez and Garden. And again, as you go from left to right to the lower, all the way to the lower right, we get to the corner of Haley Street. Got a smoke vape shop on the corner, some open parking areas, a low house directly behind that. And then you'll see in the black rectangle our subject property, encompassing those 3 photos in the middle. Currently single-story bungalow-style industrial buildings, almost no windows, and an open parking lot, fully chain link gated off in its current state. We've got a couple of photos down on the lower left of the current OfficeMax property, which would be our neighbor. Everybody's pretty familiar with that. You can see on the right image, the large wall. That wall is about 25 feet above grade, with the tower element reaching up higher than that, and the front corner element with the arcade is a bit higher with the roof pitch. So if we go to the next sheet of images, just highlighting the impact at the corners, the views from the corners, labeled appropriately, corner of Garden and Garden Street and Haley, looking south toward the freeway on the upper left. Another view of that corner on the upper right. Down at the lower left, we've got the opposite corner, Gutierrez and Garden, looking at the industrial 1-story bakery and the architectural office on the right. And then in the middle, what we've done is just highlight SB Cast as something that design-wise is certainly not the typical Santa Barbara response, and that we feel is a very handsome project, and wanting to show that we are in truly an eclectic neighborhood. Again, half a block from the freeway, as the more residential neighborhood transitions to the freeway and the funk zone and onto the waterfront. So the next page, we just show these images as examples of quite vertical 4-story or more facade type buildings. These buildings don't have a lot of relief in them. They are, one of which in EPV, actually 2 of which are in EPV. So yes, the style is somewhat different than what we're proposing, but again, mass, bulk, and scale wise, we feel like we're comparable to the overall massing here, and in some cases, potentially favorable in terms of the amount of glazing versus these more solid facades. So let's get quickly into the plans. The next sheet, our ground level. You can see the ground level is quite far recessed for a majority of it. The property line you see in heavy black, that dashed line is 5 foot in front of the closest portion. We're utilizing the new AUD ordinance 5 foot variable setback. But again, most of the lower level is recessed far beyond that. You can see the indentation for the entry lobby. You can see close access for the bike room, and then various amenity spaces used around the courtyard on the lower level, with units circling the outside. The two side yards you can see, we went with 10 feet. We've got to handle egress there. We've created exterior patios that are raised above grade for the units. The units themselves, we should say, are raised above grade per the design flood elevation, roughly 3 feet here. So if we have provided at the city's request a couple of service parking areas next to the trash room on the right side of the property that would allow for mechanical trucks and service trucks to pull in and park off street and service whatever is needed in the building. The remainder of the parking drop-offs and pickups, including trash, would be handled by the civil plans. Do you have that quickly available for us to look at that? It would be another submittal. It wouldn't be in this plan unless you've attached it. Anyway, the intent is the design of 2 parking traffic turnouts along Garden Street in front of the building. One would more than accommodate a full trash truck and dumpster pickup. The other would be strictly for ADA drop-off, rideshare drop-off, and the like. And so we can get into that maybe later as this project gets further down the road. But let's go through to the upper floors real quick. If we go back a few, just to give you an idea what the upper floors are. There's floor 2. You can see we started to insert some linear units in the courtyard. Got laundry room. And then you can see how the units wrap the outside of the building. Upstairs is 3rd floor. It's basically identical to that, with the one caveat that the center unit facing garden becomes a larger unit. And if we go to the rooftop deck, we'll see the plan for the amenities. And so we intend to have community garden plots usable by the residents, a composting portion to handle food waste. We plan to have outdoor kitchen areas and perhaps even a movie, TV watching theater, as it would be up on the roof. We've set aside some space for a dog run and dog wash area. And again, the only things that are up on the 4th floor are the overruns for the stairs and the elevator and vestibule, which would be required by code anyway to get roof access. And then let's get into the elevations real quick.
And note the time. I don't know if we're allowed to go
Yeah,
over, but definitely want to make sure we get this is what we're really here for, feedback on this.
Yep. So the Garden Street facade, you can see some of the things we are doing. We are stepping back the volumes on the front facade. You can see a recessed portion of 2 feet over the deeply recessed entry. You can see a portion of that popped out on the left side on the upper 2 floors. We have added a ribbon effect of balconies that further add to increase the 3-dimensional depth and shadows on the front facade. These range anywhere from 5 feet deep to 1 foot deep as just Juliet type balconies. And then what we've also done is we've used 3 slightly different treatments for the guardrails. We've got a vertical guardrail steel post system, and then we've got a couple of grades of perforated metal panels for the others. So we've got 2 different translucencies imagined for those. You can see the panels wrap between 2 levels on occasion. Those ones that would fall down in the on-grade raised planters would allow for plants to travel up those guard walls for the balconies. And then likewise, we would employ that same system on
I need you to try and wrap up as quickly as you can.
Okay.
Please.
No certain materials for the exterior have been selected yet. Just the kind of ideas for the balconies. We can go to the next page. You can see a similar treatment here on the north side. And then on the south side, I'll expand a little bit more. So what we've done is the stairs can vary in depth because they don't need to be the same depth as units. So you'll see some deep openings for the stairwells as they come down. These would be open air stairwells, not enclosed. You can see that we pushed back a fair amount of that stair tower there. There's a large recess at the bottom where the egress door comes out. You can see the raised planters. And again, this varying degree of balcony materials that illustrate the different looks for the materiality on the sides. And again, these balconies are anywhere from 3 to 6 foot deep on the 2 side views.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure more will come out in the questions. We need to open public comment for this item. And if we could put that slide up, please. I have that slide. Any member of the public that would like to address the board regarding this project can follow the instructions on screen and raise your hand. That will alert the staff that you would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair Moore. It looks like one person has indicated by a raised hand that they wish to speak. So I can unmute Rob Adams, and you would have 2 minutes to speak. So Rob, I have unmuted you. It looks like you were self-muted. So you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name's Rob Adams. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Hayes Commercial, and I was the listing agent on this property. And just wanted to give you a little background. You guys are probably aware that this property is owned by the Kirby Morgan Dive System family, and had been for a long time. The property is used very little in the last handful of years. Bev Morgan passed in 2018, and we brought the property to market initially for lease and then for sale. We were on the market for over a year. Some of you may be aware that the trick with this property, this block is a narrow block. Ingress and egress is challenging. Its past use of industrial is really challenged with that difficult ingress and egress. We had, as is typical, multiple buyers look at it, owner users. In the the logistics of it just made it very difficult. Greg, so we're on the market for over a year. By the time we closed, we were probably 2 years on the market. And I think the residential use that Greg has come up with is a great use for it. I think it's the highest and best use because of the challenges. I think any other use, retail or industrial, would be very difficult to work there. And I think this plan is great. And obviously we need more housing, especially that middle income and not the high end that has been built a lot. So I'm in definite support.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Moore. Again, just to remind the public, if you wish to speak, click the raise/lower your hand icon on the control panel. That'll let me know that you wish to make a public comment. At this time, it does not look like any other members or attendees wish to speak on this item. Mr. Novskaya, did we receive any written correspondence on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Russell and board members. We did receive several letters from Pete Feldman, Eric Baer, Christine Feldman, Patricia Saley, Ed Lundvik, Barry Winnick, Bob Cunningham, and Richard Lloyd, and they were distributed to the board before this meeting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, last chance for public comment. Okay, let's close.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you, Mr.
let's
Chair.
close public comment and go on to questions from the board. Who would like to start? Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Moore, I'd like to know, it seems that you're dealing with the flood zone, is that correct?
Yes.
And how do you interpret, can you walk through the ground floor, and are you doing your transitions and handicap on that ground floor with ramps in the corridors, or what?
We haven't decided yet if it's going to be ramps or a chairlift. It also was still possible to have the elevator be a part of that half floor rise. There's roughly a 3-foot offset for the units to get from the lobby bike spaces to the unit floor levels.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned that you, with your civil plan, there would be a pullout for trash pickup and so forth. That would all be developed off the property line and doesn't affect your setbacks or your spaces on property, correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. I don't think any other questions. Well, yeah, I think it's gonna come up, so can you explain the rationale why the U shape is facing the larger building in the back instead of having it face the street where there could be some more setbacks and less building on the front property line?
Ellen, you might be muted.
Yeah, still muted. Can planning staff unmute one of the applicants?
Yeah, something's wrong. You want to come this?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I think they're pretty straightforward. The building behind us prevents windows at the property line, of course, for the first 2 stories. And the other reality is the sun angles and the way the sun moves around the property. Our courtyard will be covered in sunlight for the mid-afternoon hours, whereas turning it the opposite way and facing garden would completely put a lot of those units in shadow. The other big difference is we get to have the units face out onto Garden Street, which is a 60-foot right-of-way. So that's a typical way to improve the interiors of the units that face that way, as opposed to being buried in the back of the building without that same distance separation.
Oh, okay, thank you. I did have another question. I noticed that all of your fenestration on all elevations seem to go down to floor level. Have you developed your floor plan? And when you have consistent windows down to floor level, that puts a lot of restrictions on your floor plan inside. Not being able to back kitchenettes or furniture or whatever against that facing wall. Have you developed your floor plans enough to know that this is a wise and efficient thing to do?
The short answer is yes, we have. We're pretty confident that we'll be able to keep all the apertures down to floor level. In some cases, they're living spaces, in some cases, bedrooms, of course. But we have accounted for furnishings and things of that nature, so that they wouldn't be blocked ultimately.
All right, thank you.
Okay, who's next? Questions? Mr. Olson, go ahead.
I would like to see all 4 elevations. Seems like we haven't seen all 4 of them yet, but perhaps I missed one. But if we just run through those quickly.
We've got the south here, we've got the Garden Street, and we've got the north. The rear is only the courtyard elevation, which we don't show yet. We really wanted to focus everyone's attention on the 3 sides of the building that are mostly seen through the public's experience of the building. And we can look at the section if you go back one more page.
If we could go to the actual elevation sheets, I think that's what Mr. Olson was looking for. There we go.
Thank you.
So these are a CAD version of the elevations. And again, we're going to show the 3 that are available to the public's view. But the section would help show the courtyard elevation.
And you said that on that rear elevation, there would be no windows on the building that abuts the adjoining property. Is that correct?
Correct. The back surface, the 2 branches of the U that essentially touch the existing Office Max will not have windows. The windows are made to be facing south or north.
It's an elevation that I wish that we were able to look at. Perhaps next time we'll get a closer look at it.
Yeah, can you go back to the section? It's a few sheets back.
And it might not have been in this, I don't know when you submitted this version, but when we originally submitted it, we submitted it without the section and then you added it. So it may have ended up not making it.
What's the number 2 plan set in 3? That's a different project altogether. Okay. Yeah, this isn't the updated set. So if we go down one more floor, so you can see the corridor is the one thing that you'd be looking at. Well, the long view at the 50-foot wide corridor view, right, of the corridor directly abutting the 4-bedroom on Garden.
There would be openings on the corridor, onto the corridor.
There would be curtain wall type glazing there. The corridors will be conditioned space, interior space. But once you enter the stair towers, you will be essentially outside but covered.
That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
I was curious if you studied alternate building forms besides the U shape.
Sure, we did. L shape. We looked at many different options in order to come up with the 33 unit layout that we have here.
Did you
Definitely.
consider multiple buildings connected by egress?
Multiple buildings, of course. You know, it becomes a function of affordability and cost and combining exits and egress. So this is the determination that we made the most sense for the development of the project and the number of units that the AUD allowed for.
Okay. And then can you run us through just your thought process for building systems like mechanical, for example?
Yes, currently at this early stage, we're thinking about the PTAC type units. And if you look on the Garden Street facade, if this is the updated one, no, it's not. Okay, so the PTAC units require 2 6-inch round vents on the front
I believe they're
facade.
on the, sorry, I believe they're on the elevation drawings,
Yeah, that's right.
which is really what we should be looking at.
Right.
This
So those 2 round circles are the vents that are required for these particular PTAC units that we've been researching. And those would
Okay.
be color matched to whatever material we pick. So it's a limited, very limited. This building will be all electric and have solar arrays on the roof with the goal of providing all of our power needed for the building. And structural systems, it could be a number of different ideas, but most likely type 5 wood framing.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, Vice Chair Six, go ahead.
Apologize for my trickle nature of questioning. I don't understand the stair towers. When I look at the elevations, the side elevations and this elevation, there doesn't seem to be a, I would assume that the stairways have half landing, half floor landing elevation. And I don't see that reflected in the fenestration or can we go to one of the renderings of the side elevations? Well, you can see it here.
Or you can go down, yeah.
So you've got, first of all, you've got a full story, a full story at your outside stair wall, which could be, which is, the parapet height and the roof height there is a full story and a half below the level of the landing, halfway down. And your railings and penetrations here all appear to be at floor level as opposed to at half level landings.
Well, as you exit from each floor, you're going half level to the outside and back to the opposite side.
That's correct.
But there, on the lower level, there's an added 3-foot run of stairs at the very bottom that gets you down to grade. And so we've done that with curtain wall glazing and a glass door for security purposes. But you can see the upper level openings are open air, but covered by roof. And there are different railings there used for different apertures.
Mr. Vermillion, to make a point, see where that note number 2 is on this elevation tower. And right next to it is an open air opening. But it would seem that the half flight or half flight would be right above that open air opening. You're coming down the stair and you...
Right, so the alignment of the opening would differ from the alignment floors next to it. If this is the secondary, if this is the first trip down on the run, yes, you're correct.
So you're pulling the railing necessary away from this opening?
In some cases, the landings are double deep because the stairs aren't as long as the units next to them. So that's why we're allowed to recess it in some cases. And in others, bring it all the way out and make the landing double wide.
Okay, and then my last question on the floor plan. I just, because I think it's important, can we go to the floor plan, please? Ground floor. So as I see it here, because there's no automobile parking, we have one bike room for the whole project. Has that been studied to see if that's enough room for bikes for 33 units?
Yeah, that's something we've evolved on. This is enough for a 33 stackable bike rack, but what we've come to learn is that we wanted to make the bike room bigger than the minimum size required by AUD. So we would be looking to make racks single level rather than double and have a little wider spaces for them. In the case of e-bikes, lots of people have e-bikes. We want to make sure there are outlets in that room for e-bike charging if needed. So yeah, that 16.7 wide bike room is going to get larger.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Does anyone else have questions? No? Okay. My questions are, tell us a little bit more about these amenity blocks in your plan. I see them on the ground floor and then they're kind of scattered throughout.
Right. At this early stage, we've tried to anticipate some of the service needs of the building, some of the increased electrical room needs for an all electrical building, which includes PV solar. And so we've decided to keep these floating amenity spaces as optional and knowing that there would be some use for them. But the other thing that we're trying to provide here is a community type building, whereas there would be spaces outside the units themselves to meet, sit down, get onto Wi-Fi, work perhaps. So we wanted to keep those spaces flexible at this point.
Okay, so if we can just cycle up through the building here, we've got, so ground floor amenity.
Got some flex space on the ground, but not much upper level.
Continue up.
Until we get up to the roof.
Another amenity space, okay. Amenity.
The dedicated, perhaps game room, and then we get onto the roof uses.
None of these uses have a cover, as you described, right? These outdoor kitchen areas.
There is no current cover design.
Okay. I guess one of the reasons I bring up these amenity spaces lower down is that it's contributing to the overall mass of the building. And so it's important for us to be able to understand, are those integral to the project? Or is it something that's, as you know, an amenity? And we've said it in other projects where projects that are in urban locations don't necessarily need these amenities because the surrounding city provides access for those services, spaces, etc. So
The
Does
total
it-
amenity on the ground level is 1380 square feet. So that is the number that we're showing. But again, we feel confident that there will be some electrical room needs and things that will reduce
Sure.
that number.
Sure, I
And,
understand.
if I could add, I mean, I think the plans are so early that we don't know the exact size of those rooms yet. I think they may adjust based on what Ken was talking about the needs for mechanical and electrical and other needs. So we don't know exactly, but the goal of the building is we don't want fancy amenities. If anything, we're going to have sitting areas for people. That's going to be the kind of extent of the
Okay.
indoor amenity space, really
understand.
gathering and community space.
Okay, I understand. Okay, and then if we can go to the elevations again. And this is, I believe staff has some feedback for us on the allowable height in this zone. If the planner is still available,
Sure.
sorry to keep you late.
Yes, I am still here. So by right, the allowable height is 48 feet. That comes with a couple of caveats. The first caveat is that it does have to include the roof parapet, which looking at the elevations, the 48-foot marker does not appear to include that. And so the project does appear to be over height. The stair towers and elevator towers do not count towards the height limit as long as they are the minimum size required for building code. And again, this hasn't been reviewed by zoning or building staff, so I can't confirm if that is the case. And there are 3 ways I can think of that the applicant could exceed that 48 feet. One is being designated a community benefit project by the city council. They can go up to 60 feet. That has not been part of the project description at this point. The second is to have the entire lot, all of the units be affordable housing under state density bonus, which again is not part of the proposal. And the third and the easiest way is to request a concession through state density bonus. And as long as a concession is not a health and safety issue or against a building code, not a zoning code, it's granted. And at that point, it would be out of the ABR's purview. So at this point, you guys are free to discuss overall height and massing and neighborhood compatibility. But if the height becomes a height concession through state density bonus, it is one of those untouchable items. Does
Okay,
that clarify?
thank you. Very helpful, thank you.
No problem.
So that kind of leads into my next question. So the parapet height currently from top of roof walking surface varies, obviously. Is somebody able to walk everywhere on the roof? Like up
No,
against
we
the
can go back to the roof plan real quick. The only part that you could walk up to currently, and again, this is still preliminary design, is on the upper right there overlooking Garden Street. And that's where we've got a basically 5-foot parapet.
Okay, so everything else would have a railing of some sort around it. Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay.
And all of those railings would then be set back from the edges.
Sure, I understand. And then kind of the larger question is, so we have the urban design guidelines and infill design guidelines. And I'm sure you've reviewed those, and I'd like you to touch on those and how you feel the building complies with those guidelines, particularly the massing, materials.
It's really about the fluctuation in the surfaces, in the heights, the differences in the materiality. And then we've also articulated the ground level by recessing a good portion along the street. Our aim is to improve the pedestrian experience here on this block because it's not so great currently. But yeah, all of these little moves with parapet raises and surface pushes and pulls and different depths of balconies are all in response to promote the a little more interest, a little more three-dimensionality of the project, and the play and the materiality of the guardrails of the balconies is a transparency issue that we think all plays to minimize just the flatness of the facade itself.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any follow-up questions for the applicants before we move on to comments? Go ahead, Mr. Black.
Just a quick question. Could you enlighten me in terms of your thinking on this perforated metal panels that you have as on the balconies, and obviously you've got vertical elements too. I'm just trying to understand what your intent is. Is it just a way of articulating, providing a little more variety on the building facades, or it looks like it blocks views out certain windows, but I don't know, what's your intention here?
So the intent is to take the ordinance with a 50% requirement for the openness of railings and expand upon that a little bit. And part of our ask here with you, with the board, is to visit that with us. You see some that are truly opaque. The number 2 material would be a small indicator of an opaque balcony, but none of the others would be opaque. There would be a couple of transparency percentages in perforated metal, and then the vertical rail component, which would be the most open. So that's really what we're trying to get some initial feedback on. But it would be perforated pattern material, steel plate, or aluminum. And yes, it would allow transparency, but not full view to any of the windows. And you'll note a couple of windows don't have them. So we thought that that was a plus in terms of the alternating vision of the facades themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I guess just one more follow-up question. Most projects of this scale require a dedicated transformer, which has to be reachable from the right of way. Have you brought that into your thinking as far as this project?
We have, it's always a topic of discussion. We haven't identified a spot for it yet, just because it's so preliminary, but yeah, we always ask ourselves that question as we're doing these.
Okay, well, that's, yeah, definitely something to work into the design. It's something that the board finds a critical piece of each project. So, okay, so if that's all the questions, we can go to comments. If we could have the applicants turn their cameras and audio off. Thank you. Who would like to go first? Mr. Olson, go ahead.
Actually, my comments are more like lamentations, actually. The lack of detail is disturbing for me. I realize that the balconies and the details of the balconies are intended to replace what we might hope for or normally see on buildings of this notion. But they don't do it for me. They look awkward and unappealing. So that's number one. Number two, and I understand that this is not in our purview, but it just doesn't seem right to not mention the great impact of the lack of parking to the neighborhood and elsewhere. So, and I fully understand it's not in our purview, but it doesn't seem like it should go unmentioned.
Okay. Anything else? All right, who's next? Mr. Noon, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go quick. Thank you, Chair Moore. Probably the same, similar comments to Board Member Olson. I appreciate and support the project in the sense of, what it's, the need that it's trying to meet, and that it's after. Certainly needed, but just looking at it, would just encourage the applicant to try a little, continue to try to just break up these elevations a little bit. From looking at the floor plans, it looked like there was, there's a lot of room within the floor plans that, there's some ways to do that. I agree that maybe these balconies, that attempt is not necessarily it. So I do look forward to seeing it develop because of the need, but would just encourage that to try to just make these elevations look less massive, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Vice Chair Six?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moore. I too appreciate the intent to provide housing and reasonable housing, but this just seems like a diagram out of the rule book on the absolute maximum one could achieve on a site this size without any considerations for the local environment, the congestion it creates, the realities of transformers, trash pickup, adequate use at use of the site, adequate front area to pass by this building, to any recognition, no recognition of the finesse and sensibilities of the surrounding neighborhood. It's real. I find it very unfortunate, as I said. So that being said, as I suggested or questioned the reversing the U shape of the building, I think that I counted, 6 one-bedroom units that are subject to the interiors that, would be affected by light and so forth. It seems that that's unbalanced with, forcing these flat, unrelieved elevations out to all 3 perimeters. I think there's a much more balanced way to look at this with rearrangements of the courtyard inside, either reoriented. The building, the perimeters, the north and south of them will get morning sun and afternoon sun. There could be much more imaginative ways to take that internal circulation that's running around the entire interior of the courtyard and push it to the back. So you have I'm unclear on that. Let's go to one of the floor plans. May we?
And Vice Chair Six, this is a pre-application, so we can keep our comments general. We don't need to get too detailed.
I think there's much more imaginative and creative ways to reform this building to relieve the absolute unrelieved perimeter elevations are totally unacceptable. I think there's got to be a lot more reality to how, to the sundry site uses that Santa Barbara and this neighborhood have to live with. And I'm sorry, but to follow the rule book that the state mandates and get away with no parking, it's really turning the back and sacrificing a reasonable design and accommodations of the realities in this local area. I think that as far as architecture, I just can't see any delight in the designs of these balcony fenestrations. They're spread monotonously along all four elevations. There's no center star or dominance or hierarchy in the architecture. There's not enough relief in the massing and variations in the massing. And, the stairways, the ordinance says, if I heard the staff correctly, that the stairs above reaching above the 48-foot high have to be minimal. Well, they've pulled these out and have 1.5 story volumes above the last flight, the half floor flight. So, the stairs especially are an opportunity to cut into the building and lower the parapet. And here they've exaggerated and then pulling them by far up above the normal parapet. So I find this something that this project needs to really be go back to the drawing board.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
Sure, I have very similar comments in the fact that it's concerning about how it will service this building, especially off of Garden Street. And I guess I don't quite understand how the servicing will be off-site, so maybe they can come back and explain that next time. I don't think the massing is compatible with its surroundings, and I think it can be further studied to keep it simple, but break it up along Garden Street. And I think that they can simplify the railing design and intention to be more compatible with the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else with further comments? I mean, I'm in agreement with the rest of the board members. I think the design could be modified in such a way to potentially make a building with this many units compatible with the neighborhood. I think that would really require the applicant to really take the urban design guidelines to heart and really try to create a design that looks like several different buildings. I understand the intent and the attempt in this particular design, but just the way the building, the elevations are put together and the similarity in the windows and the railing design and all that, it doesn't serve the design well. It in fact just knits the building back together. As much as you've tried to push and pull and create difference and variation, it still is just brought back together with the detailing and materials, etc. So I would encourage the applicant to look at that and find opportunities to modify this design to be able to do that. And I also think there's opportunity on the, I guess that's the western property line that's up against the neighboring building. There's opportunity there to set back slightly and provide other windows along that side, which could be quite nice for those units, as well as really study this desire to add these amenity spaces, which are, might be lounges or group rooms. I'm not sure that those are particularly useful in this case. It just serves to make the building larger, and seems like they're sort of placeholders that could be used to make the units slightly larger or slightly better configured. So those are my comments. And this is a question for staff. Does this require a motion, or are comments simply acceptable at this point?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I've mentioned it to Vice Chair 6 last item, but if we could just summarize the comments, it's a summary only, and we do not need to make a motion on these applications or this applicant type. So no motion.
Okay, great. So summary of comments. I'll start with mine. Applicant should restudy the design to make it compatible with the urban design guidelines. There are many ways to do that, but the board suggests that the building be broken up so it appears to be several separate buildings in massing, that the building height be minimized to the greatest extent possible, and meet the zoning requirements, that the applicant study the amount of amenity and general common space within the project to try and reduce the overall massing and create the best possible unit layout. That the project or the applicant shall show proposed landscaping throughout the floor plans so the board can better understand the amount of landscape area versus hardscape. That the board recommends restudying the stair tower locations so that they do not contribute to the vertical massing at the perimeter of the building. That the applicant should study alternate configurations, so potentially the courtyard is facing towards Garden Street, and that they should study setting back from the western property line to allow for more light and air to the units along that portion of the property. That the proposed elevations and the detailing with the guardrails should be restudied. What else am I missing? You guys can chime in with additions.
Services and transformer.
Oh, yes. Locate potential transformer locations.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would more generalize that comment and say that the site plan should reflect more the realities of services and the needs on ground floor of a building of this type.
Okay, we could say that. Provide a site plan with more information regarding the servicing requirements, utilities, and access. Okay. What else can we add to help the applicant? Yes, go ahead.
The applicant mentioned that they were going to provide opportunities for parking at a remote location. I'd like to, well, I don't know whether that's.
Yeah, that's not really our scope.
But I think it's a note to make to staff.
Mhm. Right, yeah, that's not within our scope. I'm sure staff and other folks are dealing with that portion of it, if it's part of the project.
As Tony has said, perhaps we could just say we could encourage something like that.
Okay. The board encourages the applicant to provide off-site parking as well as other alternative transportation. Okay, anything else? No, okay. Those are the comments.
Oh, Mr. Chair, just a minor correction. You said location of the stairways. I think you mean design and profile of the stairs.
Yeah, I guess all I meant by that was if they were to pull them, as you suggested, away from the perimeter, that would alleviate some of the massing, correct? Concerns?
Well, dropping, yeah, just say design.
Okay, so let's amend the comments regarding the stair tower locations to read, applicant shall restudy the stair design to help reduce the overall massing, apparent massing at the perimeter of the building.
Great, thank you.
Okay, those are our comments. Is that acceptable to staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. That suffices with everyone else, with our other board members, then we can proceed to the next item.
Okay, then let's close this item and move on to item number 4.
Mr. Mills, it looks like you are presenting.
I'm here.
Wonderful. And I just wanted to ask, Mr. Mills, is there anyone else that needs to be promoted that's part of your application team?
No, it'll just be me tonight.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so this is item number 4. This is 710 through 712 East Coda Street. This is a new item. It's a pre-application review. This project involves 2 properties, 710 East Coda and 712 East Coda. Proposal to demolish 1 single-family dwelling and garage structure on each lot and construct a 3-story, 3-unit building on each lot, each with 3 covered parking spaces. Shared parking access is proposed. This would result in a 6-unit development with 6 parking spaces. The units would have an average size of 1,242 square feet, the density of 26.1 units per acre. Site grade would be built up to construct units above the design flood elevation. This is a one-time pre-application consultation. No final appealable decision will be made at this hearing. Okay, does staff have anything to say before we jump in?
At this moment, Mr. Chair, unless the staff planner is present, I do not believe there's any staff comments.
Okay. All right. If the applicant could introduce yourself and take note of the 15-minute timer that will pop up. There it is.
Excellent.
Okay, go ahead.
Great. I'm Ryan Mills with DMHA Architecture. We're currently the only member of the team for the Habitat project here, but next time you'll see us, we'll most likely have landscape as part of the team and presenting with you as well. Just want to talk about, this is a pre-application, so we're going in very early. Our graphics and exhibits reflect that, so just kind of wanted to tell you that in advance. And likewise, you'll notice on some of these sheets, we're Xing out one of a building. And just for your context is originally we were studying the corner parcel as part of it. Last minute, we basically just removed that. We didn't edit all of the diagrams. So just if you're wondering, we'll walk through it. So it's really just 2 of the 3 parcels you see in some of this. So, okay, this is our 3rd project with Habitat for Humanity here in town. So we feel lucky. They're a great partner and have a great cause. A couple of their missions are important to understand just because it drives design. You know, their goal are to provide affordable housing and upward mobility, and not just providing inexpensive housing, but this is actually for sale. So that is part of their program to create true home ownership and homes for these families. So along those lines, the goal has always been for us to create not just an apartment building with as many units, but we want each individual family to feel that part of ownership by seeing a front door and having a unique experience as best we can. So that's kind of a goal behind these projects. Planning process. This is early. So we had a pre-application with the city, got some good feedback. This is our first visit to you. After tonight with any feedback or blessings you guys may have for us, then we do a formal application. We'll come back to you once we're complete, and then we're gonna be going to Planning Commission for a parking modification. So very early on, so we would love to hear feedback. Okay, actually, there should be another PDF package of site photos. Is that something we can look at first? Thank you. All right, so here are the subject parcels and the areas around us. So here's 710 on East Coda. So we're looking at kind of the context, the corner house on the right. There's one of the parcels we're looking at replacing. So next.
Sorry, Mr. Mills, can you maybe, it'd be helpful to start with just an aerial or a map view of where this is, if you have.
So I'm sorry, we do not have an aerial or map view, but what I can do is it's right across the street from Santa Barbara Junior High, if that helps at all in the park there. So next time we'll absolutely bring kind of the greater context, but so for now, this is all we have to share with you tonight, we had for the city. So this is us looking, we're on Coda. Santa Barbara Junior High is to our left across the street, right in the park, right across the street. So these are abutting that or looking at that. So here is 710, kind of showing you the existing scale and architecture. Moving down the street, there's our 2 parcels that we're replacing. Next. And then, so from that same, here's our gaze drifting left. So in context, so that's our neighbor across the street, one of my favorite buildings in town. Next. And this is really the view from those 2 parcels looking, this is kind of what we capture across the way. And next. And I think 712, did we already see that one? I think we went through there. Is there any more? Oh, a little more context, some of the architecture, just a little more look at kind of a range of transitional craftsman to Victorian along this whole corridor, if you're familiar with it. Next. You can keep flipping through till we get through. I think we understand. Yep. Okay. So now let's go to our package. Yep, this is a great site. So again, Coda is planned north, so along the 3 parcels. So we're disregarding that little current parcel on the corner, but otherwise, Coda at the top, our 2 parcels are 50 by 100, 5,000 square foot lots, so very compact and efficient. And then just some of the opportunities and constraints. We're zoned C2. Our design strategy is to follow the AUD program. And then neighborhood context is residential along Coda, left and right of us. It's the junior high across the street. Bond Avenue is the street directly behind us, and our adjacent parcels on Bond are commercial. Another significant constraint, which you mentioned, was the flood. We are in a flood zone. So from existing sidewalk, which is about 11, we'll get a little closer. We are actually, our new finished floors are gonna be about 4 feet above that. So we're gonna have 3 feet to get us out of the floodplain and then the freeboard zone, another 12 inches. So a fairly significant jump up, and we're gonna have to backfill the site to maintain or to promote positive water flow out. So that's a significant component. So can we zoom into the stats really quick? Just a quick peek. I think Chair Moore mentioned it, but we have 6 units on the right there, and what you can see, what you can see is 4 of the units, essentially, units 1, 3, 4, and 6. You go the cursor on the right, they're about 1133, so they're identical units. And then units 2 and 5, there's on the 3rd floor are slightly bigger. So really 4, 1100, and 2 of them are about 1450. Now let's scoot over to the site plan. I'll take you through kind of the general organization. So zoom out a little bit. So again, CODA's at the top. So what we're doing is we're trying to balance efficiency and cost effectiveness with a balance of architecture. So after a few studies, what we landed at was really creating a development on each parcel individually that could be mirrored. So what you'll see is there's our 2 parcels. You can see that they're mirrored. So we're using the same layout. Aesthetically, we'll play with materials and detailing. But what we do is, so from the top, we come in a shared driveway through an agreement down the middle of the property. Yep. And then we've tucked 6 parking spaces under the units above, left and right. So kind of hiding all of those cars in the middle of the property. You'll notice units 1 and 4 are addressing the street. We've turned them so they face the street, kind of to continue that language along CODA. There's units 3 and 6 are very similar in size and type along the back. And then you'll see slivers on the site plan, units 2 and 5, again, to create that sense of home and entry. We're creating these vestibules, front doors at that ground level, and then stairs up to the units above. Each one has a private open yard indicated in the light green hatch. And then there's 1 path of walkway from the right of way to behind unit 1 is all we're required at this point. And how we get up there, this does actually work. So you can see in the driveway from CODA, there's a pretty decent 5% slope. So we're going upward as aggressively as we can, and then massaging out the rest kind of in that parking area. Okay, so obviously the other thing that drives is on the front street facing units, we will create porches and steps up. So they are accessible from the parking side, but we wanted to create kind of that more traditional entry porch experience from the street. Let's go to the next sheet. Let's see, I lost my clock. How are we on time? I don't see it anymore. 6 minutes, okay. All right, here's our typical ground floor unit, starting again with the parking, 3 spots in the middle. We're providing storage at the nose of those parking spots, which help screen the private open areas on the side yards. But otherwise, so the unit on the right is the front, the one facing CODA. So you can see there's an entry porch. These are very efficiently sized units, but they're very akin to ones that we've used in Canon Perdido and Sawyer Avenue projects that are very successful. So we didn't feel the need to reinvent the wheel there. Fairly modest great room, powder and bedroom, or full bath and bedroom on the ground floor. And then likewise, you can see in the back a very similar type of layout, adding laundry in that one. Let's go up. And then on the second floor, so again, on the front and back sides, you circulate up in those 2 units to a central landing. And so the one on the right, nope, let's go all the way to the right. So this is that street unit, 2nd level. So you enter a landing, there's washer dryer on this floor, a full bath, and then 2 bedrooms facing CODA. And then if we flip all the way to the back, this is sort of that companion unit. You come all the way up to a central landing, and again, 2 full bedrooms and a generous bath. And then this middle, actually, I'm sorry. The back unit has a 3rd bedroom. So I don't know if you can put the cursor over that. There you go. So we've kind of carved a little space out of the middle of the project for that back 3rd unit. And then central unit this is the great room that's sitting over the 3 parking spaces. So you circulate up from its individual entry to this large great room, and then you circulate up again. So let's go to the next sheet. To the 3rd level. So you can, as you can see, the 3rd level, we've met all of the other setbacks. To the right, again, is Coda. So we're set back, I believe it's, I think about 30 feet from the street, and very similar to the Bond side on the left. So we've kind of pushed everything inboard on this 3rd level. And this unit also has 3 bedrooms, a full bath, shared bath, and laundry. So next sheet. So architectural character, if you're familiar with it, we're doing some very similar detailing to our last 2 habitat projects. So in this neighborhood, we felt like the kind of a craftsman or transitional language was appropriate. And then out of the pre-application, because it's in proximity of the junior high, it was circulated to Nicole Hernandez because it's so close to the historic, I don't know if it's a resource, I'm not sure, but because of its proximity to the junior high, it went on her desk and she reviewed this and she found the style as appropriate for this neighborhood and this project, and likewise the scale, because we stuck to two stories along Coda and pushed the 3rd floors back. She found both of those components appropriate for this project. But otherwise, you can see in these 2 parcels, they're mirrored. We're introducing those porches and then just playing with some architectural detailing. Let's see, let's go to the next sheet. Here is our typical kind of outboard side elevation. And again, Coda, this is our east elevation. Coda is to the right. You can see our property lines. There's our elevation, step up to our finished floor. And then again, we'll be playing with detailing, even on these side elevations, breaking up the massing and even material. You know, here we're showing 3 breakups. Maybe that's appropriate. Maybe it could be perhaps 1 less, but love your feedback on that. But I think that describes the project pretty well on this side. And then let's see, do we have 1 more sheet? Rear elevation. So if you could see it from Bond, this is looking backwards. Again, 2-story massing along the rear yards, observing the setbacks, and 3rd story is pushed a little bit farther. I believe that's it. Okay, so thank you. And again, we're early and would love your feedback. And after, if you feel like we're on the right path, we'd kind of dive a little deeper, finish our formal application, and then come back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will open public comment for this item. If there's anybody in the public that would like to address the board, you can follow the instructions that will be on screen shortly. There they are. You can raise your hand and that will notify staff that you would like to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you wish to speak on today's item, please hit that raise your hand icon / lower your hand icon, and it will notify me that you wish to speak. It looks like Jessica Wishin has raised her hand, so I will unmute you, Jessica, and you have 2 minutes to speak.
I apologize. I think it was a tech issue. So I did not mean to raise my hand, but I do work at Habitat as the CEO and I'm exceptionally supportive of the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, it does not look like anyone else wishes to speak on this item.
Okay.
Mr. Novskaya, did we receive any written public correspondence on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Russell and board members. We did receive 1 letter from Bruce and Rhonda Craig, which was distributed to the board before this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will close public comment and go to questions from the board. Who would like to start? Mr. Newt, go ahead.
I did not see an elevation. Sorry if I missed a comment about it. From the interior of the drive.
That's correct. We have not yet developed those, so we just really wrapped the 4 perimeter sides for now.
Okay.
Anything else? Mr. Olson, go ahead.
The elevation change is, I might have missed this. Is that fill?
Yes, it is.
And how does that affect the neighbors on either side of this project? And will you have retaining walls, or how will you consider that?
Yes, that is something we're required to do, that fill to get to our base flood elevation. And unfortunately, we're having to kind of mitigate that with short retaining walls. And again, I can provide much better survey information next time, but there's currently, I think, about a 24-inch retaining wall to the property directly behind us. But flanking either side of us, it's relatively flat. So yes, so we would be in a situation where we'd be introducing 2 retaining walls along the sides to our neighbors and filling up to that level and putting fences on top of that.
And one last question, what is the likelihood of that third project building becoming a part of the project?
Hard to answer that. I mean, if I had to guess right now, it's unlikely. The Habitat has that property, and it may just be kind of cleaned up as is. So currently, don't like to guess at it, but not currently a part of this project.
All my questions, thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Six.
Yes, did I understand that in the rear of the property, it's commercial use?
Yeah, the parcels. So if you're familiar with Bond, it's a range of types, but the 3 or 4 parcels directly behind us on Bond are commercial use.
Okay, thank you. And did you explain the change in setbacks from the existing on the side property lines between buildings, and especially between your building and the existing building to the left?
Sure. Can we go to our site plan, rendered site plan? So maybe zoom into the 2 larger parcels. So we're observing all of the R2 setbacks for the AUD program. So again, on the right, if you zoom in, those are on the first and second floors, 6-foot setbacks there, kind of at its closest. That's sort of yep, right there. And then as you move down towards an open yard, you can see we add about 3 more feet to that. So we go from 6 to 9, and then the open yards are a little bigger. And then if you scroll down,
And the existing buildings reflect basically that pretty much respect that 6 foot, so you're no change.
The buildings that are there existing, approximately, I'm not prepared to say, I don't know for sure where. We have a survey, I just didn't have that in this set. So approximately, Mr. Six, but we can show you that next time. I know a lot of those parcels, the garage structures are actually right on the property line through this neighborhood. So that obviously would be removed.
And then one more little guy on the street elevations. It seems, can we go to the street elevation? It seems like there was a little artistic license in the width, the upper stories. They seem to be a lot more setback from the side walls of the front units, a little bit more than what the plans show.
Well, I was when we were on the previous plan, so I wanted to finish, in addition to the 6-foot setback on the first and second floors, as you go to your third floor, you do have an additional setback for third stories. It goes to 10 feet. So it actually, yeah. So that's where it actually does align. So on the outboard sides, it does step back in again and again. We're not being super clear on the courtyard or the kind of the parking side, but it does. So those elevations, if we're going to go back, that third floor does step in as shown in that CODA elevation.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
So you're proposing that the parking is at the same finished floor as the residence, not at street level?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Okay, that's my question.
Okay. Mr. Black, any questions?
Well, I guess the only question that comes up for me, am I to assume that there's a certain economy that is involved with your decision to have these two separate buildings mirror each other the way they are? I mean, it's just a more efficient building and cost approach to this, because there's really there's no other. I mean, I looked at all the the little bungalows along CODA Street, and obviously no two are alike, and I just was curious.
In short, Mr. Black, yes, we were always looking to balance for this organization, efficiency with good design. So it's a good place to start. We had an opportunity this time to mirror, to be even more efficient than previous ones. And then can we accomplish enough variety just with architectural detailing, colors, material, language? Yes. So that's a good starting point. If the board feels, hey, a couple more pushes and pulls will help us differentiate the two, we're open to that.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Vice Chair Six.
I'm sorry, another trickle question. The front units, the front walls are right at the setback, so that means that these porch elements have very limited depth to them. And what is that depth? Yeah.
Let's go to plan. Yes, they do. In the last, again, we took the same approach. Zoom in. These are very loose and conceptual, but to scale. So we're only getting about 4 feet out of those porches. I mean, it's, maybe just for aesthetics, you could put a little chair and a little table just so it looks great. But in the past projects, it's enough to step up. It's like a covered stoop. It kind of meets those requirements and perhaps a little bit more space for a chair or so, but a fairly modest porch for sure.
So your overhead covering, including your overhang and your outriggers and so forth, all have to be within,
correct,
what, 3 feet or 4 feet?
Well, all those elements you mentioned have to be outside the front setback. So the current design, we have that down. There's about 4 feet of depth in that porch. So that porch you're seeing on those two units is about 4 by 8 or 4 by 9.
Including the overhangs, including the roofing.
Oh, no, the floor space. So the rails would be out toward of that.
Yeah, I'm talking about the architectural gabled elements for the roof, the porches, the roofs. Can we go to the side elevation? Maybe that would help.
I think I understand that. Yes, the roof element and the eaves, any of those architectural features may go beyond that, is my understanding. So if we zoom in, let's go close to that middle one, for example. Can we zoom in the porch?
Side elevation.
Oh. All right.
Can we go to a side elevation?
Zoom in to the, yep, right there.
You're able to go that much into the setback.
No, what we're showing there is that porch roof element is, well, I'm not showing the setback there, but yes, the posts could come down within 3 feet if we choose to be farther, which we've done in the past. If an overhang is 4 feet I'm not sure if it could be bigger. If you don't come down into the setback, you can achieve a little more depth. So as I'm trying to recall now, we did this some time ago. You can see an L bracket going back to the facade, I think allowed us to get about another foot out of that.
So you've done this before and you're comfortable with what you've indicated here in sketch matter, you can get that depth.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Olson, go ahead.
Yes, about meeting the handicap requirements, does slope allow you to meet the handicap requirements to access to those back units?
Yeah, if you want to go to the site plan, yes, our office took a close look at that, and then that's really what drove the design. So starting at the driveway, we have a 5% slope up, so we're maximizing up, which actually, it will also be a ramp there alongside the driveway, essentially, to get that amount of height up. So that is from our right-of-way up to the parking lot area and into Unit 1. So you get to an elevated area. We don't need access to all of the other units, and these units actually will, I think now we need to design towards universal standards, but this isn't an accessible project.
Thank you.
Okay. Just got a couple of questions. As a part of the massing, did you study doing a hip roof design to kind of reduce the apparent massing from the street?
Chair Moore, I don't think we did, but interesting idea. I mean, perhaps we could do that on one of them. That might help differentiate the two.
Yeah, you'll note that one of the existing homes there at the existing house at 712 has that classic shape. I actually lived not in this particular house, but in this exact house in another location.
Yeah,
very familiar with it.
Yeah.
And then another question for you. So on these sorts of projects, we're also really interested in promoting the privacy between the neighbors. So along the eastern property line, looks like there's a driveway, not a shared driveway. There's a driveway and then a backyard and lots of windows along that. Have you incorporated that into your design thinking and placement of windows, etc.?
You're talking window placement of our adjacent neighbor?
Correct. So
on
in
the east
this
side?
case, this would be at the right of Unit 1 and 3 and 2. So have you gone to the level of looking at window placement, window orientation to try and maintain privacy from between these parcels?
Honestly, no. We know the locations of the neighbor footprints, but we hadn't dialed quite into beyond where we're getting our units. We have the ability to move windows left and right quite a few feet. I don't know if you noticed some of those, our bedrooms are, fairly well sized. So we have the ability to slide left and right by a handful of feet, but we can definitely look at that closer.
Okay. And then this is just a question and a point. So you're currently listing your elevations. If we go to the elevation sheet, your 00 is, elevated obviously. And then you're going up from there and saying that your third floor plate is 27'9", but the reality is that from existing grade, it would be additional 4 feet, correct? So as you come back in the future, we need to see existing grade and then a dimension to the full height of the ridge as well.
Yep.
Okay, those are my question, quasi comment. But does anyone else have any questions at this point? No. Okay, let's move to comments then. we could. Mr. Olson, go ahead.
Yes, I'm in favor of this project. I think it's a quite good use of the layout here. And I think I'd even take it a step further than that. I think it's commendable. Along with some of the comments that the other board members have made regarding some what are sort of minor changes, I think this is quite a bit on the right track.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
Sure, just a general comment. I think that the presentation was lacking substantial documentation of the neighborhood, and I think that would have been really beneficial, and just labeling in general. But that being said, I think the architectural style is compatible to the neighborhood. I think the idea of studying a hip roof is a good idea in this location. I think a variation between the two front elevations would be appreciated. And I'm having a hard time with putting a wall around the entire property and raising it 4 feet. I don't know if there's a way to just do that for the house and not the entire property. I don't know if that's possible, but it just seems like it's going to be towering over the neighbor to the 716, whatever direction that is. But I do appreciate that the Otis Street elevation and the rear elevation are only 2-story. And I think if they can study the minimal dimensions for the parking would be appreciated. And I think those are my comments.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Vice Chair Six, go ahead.
I agree that, I think it's a good project, commendable and moving in the right direction. I'm a little, it's a little short of information. I think when it comes back, that we need a lot more, as Chair Moore indicated, the privacy issues between the existing two units to the flanking left and right. And I'm a little concerned, even though the historian has blessed this, is that, we've got another story at the street, and we're up almost 4 feet from the street. I would really appreciate having a street elevation to show accurately the existing 2 or 3 or whatever existing structures and their heights relative to these new ones. I think that was my comment.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll go, Chair Moore.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, I'm just would say I'm in support of the project, and I don't really have anything further to add that hasn't already been said, but I am looking forward to, some of those further studies, specifically of how the two could differentiate.
Okay, thank you. And a question for staff. This is another pre-app type thing. So list of comments is acceptable?
That'd be correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. So I'll try and summarize. Start with my own comments that in general, the board is supportive of the project and the use and the general layout of the site. Please, when the project returns, please provide additional documentation regarding the neighborhood and adjacent parcels, and that would include an elevation view of the adjacent existing homes along this block. Also, study adding hip roof to reduce the apparent overall massing of the projects. Please attempt to differentiate the massing of each of the buildings to the greatest extent possible or feasible. Let's see, provide full dimensions on the elevations, including the existing grade and dimensions from existing grade to new ridge lines. Study the configuration of the porches and the porch coverings to, I guess, expand those to the greatest extent possible to provide better outdoor space for each building. Let's see. Provide survey information to show grades around at the parcel as well as adjoining parcels, and study window placements to ensure there are no privacy conflicts with neighbors. Placements, locations, sizes, I should say. And what else can we add to help the applicant? Go ahead, Vice Chair Six.
Chair Moore, I think included with the refined side elevations in reference to Ms. Anderson's concern, we should see the elevations and the impact of these retaining walls between the new elevations and the side properties.
Okay, so include, would you say site sections?
Not elevations of those retaining walls.
Okay, you mean like in plan form or
in elevation?
Include them in the elevations is what you're saying.
Yeah,
okay.
And accurately, yeah, of course.
Okay, and when the applicant returns, please include within the elevations the site retaining walls to depict the impact to the neighbors, and provide interior, or not interior, elevations of the courtyard or drive aisle elevations of each building. Okay.
I'll second
Anything
that.
else?
Or, I'm in agreement.
Appreciate you.
Summary.
I appreciate your second,
No, never mind.
but not needed at this time. So if that's all the comments, last chance to add anything.
So, yes, I would.
Yes.
We haven't said this, but I just pray light into these buildings. So where possible, make these windows as large as you can economically do it. It just seems to make them so much more livable to do that.
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. Noon, you had something?
I was going to ask about trash.
Okay. I'm sure that will come out of the next step in their process. Okay, those are our comments. Thank you very much. And I believe that is it for our agenda this evening.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. So is that correct, Mr. Russell?
Yep.
Okay, so with that, we can adjourn our meeting for tonight. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.